the oldest neighborhood of Portland. This is officially known as Old Town / Chinatown. And you can see the age of this neighborhood reflected on the facades and at the bases of a number of the buildings, like that burnt orange building a block away. You'll see that goes back to 1889. The green building on the corner there, the Society Hotel, actually goes back further to 1881. And it began its life as a boarding house and chapel for sailors. We do the tour in and around this building, the Merchant Hotel, goes back to 1889. And one of my favorite buildings in this neighborhood is about 2 blocks that away. Erickson's Saloon goes back to 1912. And if you go back into that era, picture please these streets as all being dirt at that time. You had horses, the main mode of transportation, clumping up and down. It rained a lot here. So what you had going on here was basically a muddy stew that was exacerbated by the unfortunate reality that a number of the local businesses were simply dumping their sewage right into the street. So this was, in short, a smelly, muddy mess. Part of this neighborhood, that's the Chinatown component, is an ever-shrinking sliver roughly that away, but it was not always Chinatown. For decades, it was Japantown, and it contained one of the largest concentrations of Japanese people on the West Coast. Then, of course, along came World War II, and FDR, hands down one of my favorite presidents, made what I would characterize as a very hurtful decision, in that he mandated all Japanese people on the two coasts be sent away to internment camps. I think it's a really dark blot, personally, on the local history. The enthusiasm with which we complied with this order. Portland does have a racist history, no doubt about it, but I'm not going to go into that now. But I will tell you, there's a nice tribute to the people who lived in this neighborhood, part of the Waterfront Park, the Japanese-American Historic Plaza. It's worth a visit if you've got some extra time today. Anyway, so early 40s, that's when Chinese people started filtering in from other neighborhoods to this neighborhood. And now here we are 80 years later. Time's a funny thing, as we all know. Now the actual Chinese population of our so-called Chinatown is less than 10%. Most of those people were driven out by the escalating cost of rent. Many of them relocated to the new unofficial Chinatown over there across the river on northeast and southeast of 2nd Street. So that's where you're going to find the genuine dim sum parlors, the herbal remedy shops. And hey, if after the tour you're in the mood for some really great Chinese food, my strongest recommendation is avoid Chinatown. Nothing good in the food category occurs in these blocks. But there are plenty of good Chinese places here in town. If you want a recommendation or two, hit me up after the tour. Okay, so I'll tell you, back in that era, once again, the late 1800s, early 1900s, population of Portland skewed largely male. Why? Well, because the primary industries back then were maritime shipping and timber. So with that little bit of info in mind, if you had to take a guess, shot in the dark, as to what the actual ratio was of men to women back here in that era, what would you guess?
4 to 1.
How about 15 to 1? 15 men for every woman. Kind of a good news, bad news situation, I guess. 15 to 1. So with that little factoid, what kind of businesses do you think you might find in our little neighborhood?
Brothels.
Seamstresses. We're from Seattle. We're visiting. We're Seattle. We know there's seamstresses.
Brothels.
Yeah, I'll translate that in a second. But prostitutes, brothels, and bars. I've never had somebody volunteer that. Yeah, so brothels and bars. And you know, about 3 months ago, beginning of the summer, I had a large group out here. And almost everyone in unison said, prostitution. I felt like I was leading a rally for prostitution. It's a strange moment. Brothels and bars, and some entrepreneurs combine those businesses under a single roof, like our friends over there at Erickson's Saloon. I should preface this by telling you that this neighborhood back in that era was called or considered the blazing center of Portland because the nightlife was just off the charts. But Erickson's was the center of the blazing center. It was just it was a madhouse. It was an entire square city block, and it had the nickname of being the 9-bar saloon because there were actually 9 individual bars beneath it. If you lined up those bars, there's actually total 684 feet of drinking space, or the approximate height of the U.S. Bancorp building, one of the tallest buildings in town, just a couple blocks away. Each of those 9 bars had a unique feature of the era. Around all sides of each borough is a built-in trough. Anybody want to guess? Anybody want to guess what that might have been used for? You look like you know. No.
Not sure.
You're not. Anybody want to take a guess?
P station.
Yes. So the scenario there
Philippines.
would be you're a guy, you've had a few beers perhaps under your belt, nature calls. You don't have to march all the way out to the outhouse. No, you just stood up where you were, relieved yourself, and sat right back down and returned to that all-American hobby of getting hammered. So of course you wouldn't find too many women in that portion of Erickson's. Now I don't know if you walked past the Erickson's building on your way here today, or drove past on your way here today, but on the corner there, part of that building, there is an establishment called the Spice Gentlemen's Club. I don't want you guys to get the wrong idea about me. I've not been there today. But a century ago, in that very same spot, there was a small stage upon which semi-clad women would dance. Men were perfectly welcome to watch as long as they're willing to stand behind the electrified chicken wire fence. I know, shocking, huh? Yeah. Seriously, folks. The top floor, there's a series of small rooms. They call them cribs. And you could rent one of these cribs for the night or for a half hour in case you needed a quick nap, let's say. So, of course, that's where you find the prostitutes or ladies of the night. But back in that era, they preferred not to be called prostitutes or ladies of the night. They preferred to be called
Seamstresses. Am I right?
You are right. Because they found, do you know why? Taxes.
I don't
Yeah, it
know
has
why.
to do with taxes. They found that if they could join the Seamstresses Union,
okay.
the cops would just leave them alone. It was about generating taxation dollars. And that brings us here to the Merchant Hotel. Pretty big buildings, half of a square city block, completed in 4 phases, finally by 1889. And it was a posh hotel. This is where merchants would come to conduct their business. It's one of the first buildings in Portland with a hydraulic elevator. And where you order your pizza today, that was literally the check-in desk for the hotel.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that this place was so posh, there was a brothel on premises. And that's where we begin to talk about our resident ghost, Nina, which we're going to do out in the courtyard. So follow me through the restaurant by the Merchant Hotel. It's a cool building. In fact, you can see it from this plaque that we're on the National Register of Historic Places. Okay, it's time to segue into some of the supernatural material. And my first question in that category is there anybody in this group that's had a direct personal experience with ghosts or the supernatural? Let's hear it.
We went to like this like old jail cell, and it was known at the time that this was back when if you were suspected to be a witch, you were either hung or you were stoned or both sometimes.
Yeah.
And we kind of went into this cell, and they were told that if you go to the cell off to the side, sometimes you can then feel this hand start to grab you, or this voice. I walked in, felt a shiver right up and down my spine, and I felt somebody like gently grabbing my shoulder, and then trying to pull me back.
Really?
And I ran out of that cell. Ran out.
Where was this?
It was,
Victoria.
yeah,
Victoria.
Oh, Victoria.
Victoria,
Canada.
Yeah.
Canada. Yeah.
Oh, Canadian ghost.
Canadian ghost.
I would expect the Canadian ghost to be more polite to you personally.
Right,
but-
exactly.
How long ago was this?
Was it like 5 or 6?
6 years ago.
6 years ago?
Really? Okay. Anybody else? Okay, let's do a little poll here. If you had to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being you do not believe in ghosts, never will believe in ghosts, 10 being you're convinced that there are ghosts, the supernatural things in our world, where would you be?
Give it an 8.
Okay.
9.
Okay.
10.
8.
Yep.
Did you drag this poor woman on the
And the fact that you're 1 and she's 9.
I don't know.
What about you? Okay. Okay.
We can work together.
Ready to 5. Okay. Okay.
7.
Okay. So by and large, people who believe in this, FYI, I'm a 10. I'm guessing you'd be a 10 too if you conducted this tour. Okay, let's talk about our resident ghost, Nina. Nina lived and worked here in the brothel, and that was on the 3rd floor. She lived up there with her 12-year-old daughter. She did not want to be here. She did not want to be doing this. It's believed she was sold into this line of work, and she was desperate to get out. One day she's visited by a group of Christian missionaries, whose mission evidently involved eradicating this kind of immoral behavior in Portland, and they make a deal with Nina. The deal is if Nina will tell these missionaries everything that she knows about the inner workings of this brothel, they will guarantee her release. Nina considers this. She realizes she may be putting herself into some kind of physical jeopardy, but she's so desperate to get out of here, she complies and she spills the news. Then these missionaries do something stupid. They run to the Portland police. Now, I don't know if anybody here is familiar with the checkered history of the Portland police, but it's been pretty well documented that for a good 5 or 6 decades, they were considered to be among the most corrupt police forces in this country. It finally got so bad that at the end of the 1950s, our city leaders were actually subpoenaed down to Washington, D.C. They were forced to testify in front of a Senate committee that was investigating corruption in major U.S. cities, and we got scathing remarks. The chairman of the committee said that Portlanders should be so ashamed of their city, they should be flying their flags at half-mast. It was bad. Anyway, that's who the missionaries run to. Missionaries run to the police, tell the police what they just heard from Nina, and off they go. Then the police rush over here because they've got a piece of the action. They're making money from this place, no big surprise. They sit down with the owner and managers and give these guys an ultimatum. Do something about this woman, Nina, or we will. Then several days later, Nina's body was found at the bottom of the elevator shaft. Now, this elevator did not exist back then. Elevator did exist, though, in the little room right beyond those white pane windows. It's this tiny room back of the restaurant. We're going to go back there. If you do go back there, as you enter, as you step over the threshold, on the left-hand side, about shoulder height on me, you'll see a brick that has the name Nina etched into it. Honestly, it could have been Nina. It also could have been some drunk guy after a picture and a half of beer, but it is there for you to see if you like. Okay, so now we're going downstairs. A few things. One, if you want to take photos, feel free to take photos. There are no restrictions at all. My request, though, would be for you to check out whatever photos you've taken during the beer tasting, which is the end of the tour. Check them out, see if you notice anything that you hadn't noticed with the naked eye, something that seems kind of suspicious. It does happen, and not infrequently. So check them out, and at that time, I will share with you a photo that falls into that category. If you've got questions, ask. I'll try to answer. And then finally, about the waivers that everybody signed. Those are injury waivers because it is dark. Very many low-hanging pipes, the floor is uneven, part of it's cement, part of it's dirt. There are potholes down there, the odd rock may be in your way, so just exercise caution. And let's head on down.
We got one actual Portlander, can't find her yet, and then Californian.
Okay, so I described this next portion of the tour as the main portion of the tour. It's about 35 minutes long. And I'd like to preface this by saying that things do happen down here, but they don't happen on any kind of time frame, any kind of time schedule. They seem to happen in clumps. And as an example of that, I'll point to June of 2023, a year and some months ago. Beginning of the month, one of our bartenders, Ashley, he's no longer working here, Ashley had gone into this room to change the beer taps. And as she was doing that, she heard in her ears, in her words as if amplified through a screechy microphone, extremely loud and aggressive growling, succeeding in terrifying her. She sped upstairs, told our lead bartender, Ann, who's on today, what had occurred and made it clear she was not coming back downstairs that day. Matter of fact, she called in sick the next day. As a matter of fact, during the entirety of the rest of her tenure here, she never ever set foot down in this basement area. That's how freaked out she was. Anyway, that occurred on a Friday. 2 days later, on one of my Sunday tours, I had as a guest on my tour a woman named Alicia. Alicia is a medium. And I hope you can appreciate from my point of view that having a medium on this tour is sort of an extra added bonus. One of the first things she says to our little group that day, she said, this is one of the most haunted places she'd ever stepped foot. And when I told her group what I just told you about Ashley's experience in that room, she said, that was not Nina growling in Ashley's ears. No, that was a different ghost, a malevolent ghost who dwells down here with others. And that was the first time I was hearing that. Thank you, Alicia. And then in the intervening months, that has indeed proven to be the case. She also said that Nina could leave here anytime she'd like, but has decided to stay here to act as a protector against the activities of these malevolent ghosts. And I'll tell you more about that later, but right now, if you just join me over in this area.
Really? No, there's no inside. They might exist.
So this is how we get beer kegs into this restaurant. You can see it's a very, very complex and sophisticated system. What happens is the doors open and they slide the kegs down. And you see the kegs right over there. Anyway, in 2016, a delivery guy had just done this, mission completed, kegs delivered. He's standing here, he's filling out his paperwork, when he smelled some perfume and had the sense someone was standing behind him. So he turned around, and there he saw a woman dressed all in black. Now, these are the signs that you're in Nina's presence. You will smell her perfume and or see her dressed in black. This guy didn't appreciate this very much. Ran upstairs and demanded to know who that woman was in the keg room. He's told there is nobody in the keg room, and he basically says bye-bye. He crossed off Old Town Pizza from his delivery list, never to be seen here again. Anyway, this is a pretty good photo opportunity. If you want to take it, take a few minutes and then just join me in the hallway and we will go forward.
Me in there?
This is what I call spooky mode. If you want brighter light, just twist the dial.
Yes, definitely.
Like this would like stay on red all the time.
No,
No, we're
no, it'll stay on
See now it's going. This is
Doing that like before.
Does it make noise or not?
Just 5%.
Everybody be aware of any unusual physical sensations that they may feel from this point forward. Just keep track, and we'll talk about it later. I'm not going to prejudice you any more than that.
Oh, God. Just the thought of it is.
Okay, so we're going to step foot into the next
I'm
room.
not going first.
Please be careful. The floor is kind of bumpy. There are some pipes when you enter the room. Also, just take your seats anywhere around the tables that have candles on. So follow me, please.
Oh, go in. She wants me to go first. I do.
No, I want to go.
You, okay, you go.
Oh gosh, really low, really low.
And there, here to your right, to your left.
We did a picture, we should get
Okay, so at the beginning of the tour, I talked a little bit about the importance of the maritime shipping industry here. But there was a built-in problem from the point of view of the people who own these boats. The problem was they were constantly working with depleted crews because crew members would just, disappear, jump ship at the earliest opportunity sometimes. So these guys were in the constant mode of seeking new crew members. And that brings sometimes they got desperate. Sometimes they even had to resort to unethical or even illegal ways of hiring. And that brings us to Shanghai. Is anybody familiar, what does anybody here know about the practice known as Shanghai? Yes? You know.
Like the myth is that, like a trap door opens underneath you.
Yeah.
And then you fall down and wake up later on a pirate ship.
Yeah, that's basically it. And you know what? You're right to call it a myth. I believe it actually happened, but I don't believe it happened nearly as much as some so-called historians represented to have it. I like to call these the so-called Shanghai tunnels for a couple of reasons. First of all, there was another method in place that accomplished the exact same thing that was legal. Shanghai would not be legal. You're kidnapping a human being, that's a felony. But crimping, perpetrated by a con man called a crimp, was legal. Highly unethical, but legal. And there were many ways to crimp an individual. Here's an example. This con man, this crimp, would position himself in a street corner, on a street corner somewhere here in Old Town. And what he was doing was he was looking for a potential victim. Some guy who just looked like he fell off the turnip truck. Here comes some guy now, looks like he fits the bill, looks like he's never seen the big city before. So the crimp engages this guy in conversation. And pretty soon he gets to his the information he needs to know. And when he asks the guy, "Sir, what brings you to Portland today?" The guy responds something like, "Well, I'm desperate for a job." Crimp asks him, "Well, how are you fixed for money today, sir?" The guy says, "I don't have a dime to my name." Crimp makes this big drama scene of thinking this thing over. Finally, he says, "You know what? Sir, I have never, ever done this before, but you know what? Your story seemed to touch a deep spot in my heart. I happen to own this boarding house across the street. I welcome you to stay with us, sir, for as long as you need to get a job, get some money in those pockets of yours. In the meantime, sir, all you gotta do is sign right here." Now, keep in mind, these guys, many of these guys are illiterate or simply did not bother to read this sheet of paper. If they bothered to read it, they would see clearly this is a debtor's note. The guy happily signs, goes into the boarding house, runs up a tab over a bunch of days, and finally, he can't pay this tab. And the crimp, knowing full well that this guy has run up a bill and he cannot pay, he comes back and he calls in the debtor's note, and this guy has been crimped. He's marched down to the harbor, handed off to a ship's captain, and off this poor saphead goes on an unexpected tour of duty that could range anywhere from 3 months to 2 years. And for this, the crimp receives a crimping fee, kind of a finder's fee that averaged $50 per head in the currency of the day, or about $1,500 per head in today's currency. So it's easy to see how some unscrupulous individuals could make a lot of dough doing this. Does anybody know, though, why these tunnels were constructed to begin with? There's a photo that I've come across many times, a black and white historic photo from the early 1900s that tells the whole story. What you see in this photo is a ship tied up on the pier of the Willamette River. In front of this boat are two guys, and what they're doing is they're unloading goods, material goods, from the boats and placing them in the tunnels, in the openings of the tunnels. Those goods would then be, in essence, buried underground through tunnel, basement, etc., until they reach their intended destination. It was a pretty smart way of avoiding the thievery that was rampant on street level, and also a way of avoiding that smelly, muddy, goopy mess that I was talking about earlier. Please follow me into the next room and watch your head as you go through the door. There is a help ready to
There's a couple right there. I'd like to see that.
So if you look around the room, you'll see, as I struggle with this new flashlight, you'll see these chunks of cement. We're pretty much surrounded by them. Let me tell you how they got here. The Merchant Hotel finally closed its doors in the late 1900s, in the mid 1960s. And that left this building largely vacated. And what had always been pretty much a sordid, unsafe situation below street level, it just got worse with the building being empty. Because now you had drug dealers openly selling heroin down here. You had prostitutes openly working. You had homeless people actually dwelling in the so-called Shanghai tunnels themselves. As you might imagine, the local population got to be kind of pissed off at this situation, and they relentlessly bombarded City Hall with petitions demanding some kind of remedial action. Finally, it took 20 years, but finally City Hall did something. They enlisted the police to go through all of the so-called Shanghai tunnels with pickaxes and sledgehammers with orders just to reduce them to rubble. This is the stuff that they pulled out. Some of this stuff would then be redeployed back inside the tunnels to seal them up extra tightly. So, in short, since the late 1980s, the so-called Shanghai tunnels have been impassable. Follow me this way, please, and march your heads as we turn the corner over here. Okay, so what we're looking at here, these are our Airbnb spaces. No, I'm kidding. These are not original structures. We built these to illustrate a practice that occurred in a number of the basements here in Old Town Portland. These are holding cells. Into these would be placed men who are being crimped or shanghaied, women who are being sold into prostitution. They'd be dragged in, or they arrive by other means. They'd be crammed in 6 to 8 per cell. Their shoes would be removed. The floor would be scattered with shards of broken glass to discourage anybody who had any smart ideas about trying to escape, and also to alert the captors somebody was trying to escape. Now these will accept your weight. If you want to hop in, see what it's like, take a photo or two, and then just kindly meet me around the corner.
Sure. Alright, and this one? Alright, I have no shoes.
I don't know if I can do it.
How's the doors closing?
You go in there with your little baby thing. Oh gosh.
Open the door.
That one has it. That one has a bar.
It's like Jacqueline's dorm room.
Do you want to do that?
You want to go into prostitution or on the show?
Yeah, you want the show?
And nothing much.
There was more kind of on
Yeah.
that wall.
Yeah,
Pretty
more
good
of
with
that.
my work.
That's what I
Do you want to
thought.
go in there? Go in there and I'll take your picture. Go in. She just was in there. Go in. You have your picture? Check it there, Alexander. Here.
At least not yet.
Is that a trapdoor right there?
Yeah.
Oh, who's doing that? This is so scary.
Turn the light off.
I really was scared.
Look through the window. Step aside. Turn that light off.
I can't turn it on. Just walk away from that. Just.
Can I check out this one? Do you mind?
So 6 people would be here?
6 to 8. Yeah.
Oh.
These are 6 to 8.
No, this cell.
Welcome to my crib.
Here, wait, it's slow exposure, so you have to hold it.
Yeah, no.
You girls.
that it?
That one has the window. So how many are in there right now? How many are? Only 4, and how many did they say? 8.
I think he said 6 to 8.
And there's
Yeah, you get on.
and there's glass down here. Days.
Like that's
Oh God.
There's a great food court there. Fried egg on the bone.
Okay.
Breakfast sandwiches. Great.
Oh good. We're gonna have to try that.
Oh, yeah, that's gonna go in here.
In a minute we will. How's that meter doing?
It did 5 for a moment. For like a couple of like bursts.
Just outside the holding cells by the wall,
Okay.
across from it.
That's one not to put your hand.
Are you guys the last out of there, or there's still some people there?
At least one. Well,
We are. I don't know their name, but they're Texans.
All right. I'm gonna have to exert some force here.
I only know what state they're from.
Move forward.
The one that hasn't won and the one that hasn't died. Yes, exactly.
Alrighty, so we have arrived at the lowest of our low-hanging pipes. We're gonna go around the thing. Just a few words of caution though. The floor is very, very, very uneven. There is a doozy of a pipe that you need to avoid with your head. So we're gonna go around the thing, and when we come out on the other side, if you look immediately to your right, you'll see a decommissioned tunnel that's been covered with a slab of cement. So follow me this way.
We're going in there.
I'm sorry?
We're going in there.
Yes.
It's very dark in there.
Yeah, do we have lights?
Oh God.
Dead air is actually a dangerous thing.
Oh yeah, because of the no oxygen.
That's the only thing I'm pretty afraid of, but other than that, I'm.
But you got your EPA testing and your whatever. You know how to do it.
My sculpture.
This is so different from Seattle was on the ground.
And if you look right over here, that's where you see that decommissioned tunnel.
Oh yeah. In the what are those called?
Corrals.
Wait, is that what they're called? Yeah, I think so.
No, decommission was back here.
Yeah, all the way to the back. Or the front.
Okay. But that way.
Okay, so I'd like everybody to look over here on this side of the of this post here, this post right here, on the adjacent white curtained area. I'll take a mental photo of this area. I'm going to show you an actual photo that was taken right here, and I'll show it to you during the beer tasting. I think you're going to find it pretty interesting. Now, young sir, I'm going to ask your help leading the way through there. If you could just lead the way, we'll be following you. I sense some hesitation on your part.
I'll be with you.
There's nothing on the other side of the door. We don't have people in ghost suits ready to jump out at you or anything like that. You have to give it a good push. And watch your head going through that doorway.
Like one by one or?
Oh yeah.
Oh my god, are they like new ones? Oh, they have new ones?
Yeah. They're really fun.
I've been obsessed with them. Can we play online together?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'd like to talk with everybody about this door that we all just walked through. This door is the single most frequent topic of discussion among the four of us who are conducting this tour. Just put in perspective, I've been here as a tour guide a year and a half. I joined a year ago, February, and at that time there were three of us conducting this tour. Myself, Jason, who's left the company, and Natasha, who's working today. And what was happening when I joined up was Natasha would be leading her group towards this door, like I just did with you guys, and she'd find the door already open, like this, or points in between. And this happened time and time again to Natasha, and only to Natasha. This went on for about 6 or 7 weeks, and then it stopped. Then on August 18th, and I know the date precisely because Natasha made an entry in the logbook we keep on about this tour behind the bar, which you're welcome to look at, by the way. But anyway, on August 18th, she came down here, and the door was all the way the heck open. Now here's the deal. There's no airflow to speak of down here. There's no air current to speak of down here. And you let us into this room. You had to really give that door a push, right? It meant some significant degree of friction with the floor. And yet this was happening all the time to Natasha. Well, finally, she became a little, I guess, paranoid, or maybe even a little afraid, and she came up with what she believes is the solution to what's occurring down here. She believes that she was singled out for pranking by Nina or one of the other malevolent ghosts as well down here. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but it is that kind of a tour.
Yeah, there's something.
And it makes more sense, oddly, than the alternate solution which we floated for a while, and that was that homeless people were somehow getting down here. And to me, that just doesn't fly. For one thing, the only way down here is via that door that we all use, and you need to know the numeric code to open the thing. The building has been totally sealed off, so right now I'm going to go with Natasha's explanation. And this is where I ended my little part of the narrative until about 3 months ago when it began happening to me. But kind of in reverse. I was leading a group out on this particular Saturday from the deepest part of the tour down this hallway where we're going to go in a minute. And on 2 tours of my 3 tours on that particular Saturday, I led the group in and the door was open. Next day, again. Next weekend, again. It's happened to me several times. It began happening to Natasha again. So in lieu of any other reasonable explanation, once again, I'm going to go with Natasha's explanation. I also want to show you guys this thing over here, this little amenity of the Merchant Hotel. A kind of oddly out of place baby chair, high chair. It used to kind of freak me out a little bit, or just make me uneasy, but the only way it would make me uneasy these days if I came down and there were an actual child seated in the thing. Anyway, follow me down this hallway here. Okay, so there is a website out there. It's called PortlandGhosts.com, and what they do is they visit and evaluate all of the haunted places here in Portland, and you'll be happy to know, or maybe not happy to know, that the area that we've been walking through today was rated the #1 most haunted place in Portland. So, hooray for us, right? In my opinion, based on my observations, the 3 most haunted areas of this tour are the room where I was talking to you guys and asking you to take a mental photo of that wooden post, the room where I was talking about the door, and then this room right here where we're standing. And I'll tell you, this room careened into my consciousness big time in November. I have to step over here to show you guys something. In the early part of November, a woman on one of my tours took me aside after the tour was over and told me that she had stepped into this room right here and she felt her feet begin to tingle. So she stepped out and they stopped tingling. To test it, she stepped back in, they began to tingle again. She stepped out and they stopped. Okay, that was the beginning of the month. Short time later, November 11th, and I remember the day clearly because it was the day before my birthday, I had an overbooked tour. I had 17 people. And among the members of this group was a family of 4 people. 2 senior citizens and their 2 grown adult daughters. Mom was 76, her husband was 82. And they were all clustered right here where I am. And on that date, I was doing what I'm doing now, which is kind of sort of wrapping up the narrative around this particular room. And I'm looking back over there and I see that one of the daughters grabs her mom's elbow because mom seems to be having a difficult time standing. She's kind of weaving a little bit. And I said, is everything okay? And the daughter said, yeah, mom's just having, she just feels a little dizzy. So she takes mom by the elbow and parks her right here. Mom sits here. And the woman's husband sits right next to her. I continue to talk. I'm talking. I look over here, and I see this elderly woman's head slumped forward. The daughter says, Mom, are you okay? And there is no response. I say, do you want me to call 911? And she says, yes, please. So I run out to the other room, dial up 911, and they respond instantly, but they got to qualify you, just to make sure it's not a prank. Who are you? Where are you? What's going on there? And as I'm answering this person's questions, I'm looking back here and I see the husband's head also slumped forward, and this guy too becomes unresponsive. I mean, crap, nothing like this has remotely ever happened on this tour before or since. Okay, so I rush upstairs. I grab 3 of the EMTs and come back down. And by the time I'm back down here, about 5 minutes later, thanks to a registered nurse who just happened to be on the tour, these 2 elderly people are on their backs on the cement floor. Their eyes are closed. I can't tell if they're breathing or not. EMTs take their vitals, then place them each into individual emergency stretchers and lead these guys up around this corner and up around that staircase there, which goes into an abandoned restaurant, what used to be Hobo's restaurant. And they go out through the main doors there and out onto Northwest 3rd. I follow because I'm concerned. When I get up there, here are these 2 elderly people in wheelchairs. Their eyes are open, they're answering questions, they seem to be okay. So that's a big relief, right? So I watch as the EMTs wheel them to their individual ambulances and pack them into their ambulances, and I watch as the ambulances pull away from the curb, disappear from view. And as I'm standing out there on Northwest 3rd, the thought occurs to me, isn't it amazing what some people will do to avoid giving me a tip? I mean, it's about me, right? But yeah, that occurred exactly as I explained it to you, including the no tip part. Excuse me, I'm going to stand over here. I want to go back to the Sunday when I had as my guest Alicia, the medium. And it was a small group, it was just 8 people. And I was standing here. Alicia was here, and in this corner here were were 2 young people, a young man and a young woman, and the guy says, I'm smelling perfume. And his date says, I'm smelling perfume too. And then I realized I too was smelling perfume. And that was the first time I smelled Nina's perfume, and I attributed it directly to the presence of Alicia on this tour. When the tour was over, I had an opportunity to sit down upstairs in the restaurant and talk to Alicia for about 10 or 15 minutes. And she confessed to me that while we were standing here, she felt that the group was in physical danger. It seems she had looked back into that room back there, all the way in the back, and she saw standing there a male figure dressed all in black. That was pretty eerie, but what made it eerier still for me was the fact that there was no possible way Alicia could possibly have known that that same individual, male figure dressed all in black, had been seen by guests on one of our tours about a dozen times to that point in the year. She thought that this guy meant to do us physical harm, but was prevented from doing so by the presence of Nina, who, judging from the aroma of her perfume, was standing here acting as a protector. She also shared with the group what she believes is occurring down here. She believes that just like there's human trafficking, there's soul trafficking, and that's being perpetrated by these male figures dressed in black. She said that, once again, to reiterate, Nina has decided to stay here to act as a protector against this practice occurring. Okay, so now we're gonna go upstairs for a little more ghost talk, some beer tastings, and so follow me as we retrace our steps.
I just feel cold.
Yeah, I was noticing a breeze in my legs over there. There's 2 paths for air to come through. But I was like, oh, weird. I think that's the last of us.
Yep.
Do you want us to close the door?
Yeah, please close the door. There's a little knothole in the center there. Okay, so once again, we're going around that low-hanging pipe, so please be careful.
This was not one to put. Are there other like ladybugs?
This is like watch out for that thing.
Oh yeah, I live
My collar. No, I've actually had my stuff in the chair.
I do really need flashlights because these aren't really good for projecting light in the room.
Also, yeah, these aren't really bad.
Like you can't like kind of like put it down the hallway. I can't see what's down the room. Do you want to start calling flashlights torches? I think that's kind of cool. I'm getting really into my vernacular.
Oh, does it work? Wow. Yeah, it's very vernacular.
I know. Ooh, that's a haunted door sound.
Where's the lantern?
Oh yeah, here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm very attached to it.
Yeah. While we're standing here, have a look at this photo here. That's actually a photo of Erickson's saloon, the 9-bar saloon, complete with trough.
Do you know who the lady in the drawing next to it is, or?
Oh yeah, that's a copy of a haunted object. I'll tell you the story. Is anybody familiar with the writer Chuck Palahniuk? Does that name ring a bell to anybody? Chuck Palahniuk is a local writer who gained national fame. Why am I having such a tough time with this little number?
Do you want me to shine my flashlight on?
Yeah, that'd be great. Chuck Palahniuk gained national, I guess international fame with his novel Fight Club. And he wrote an essay, I want to say maybe about 10 or so years ago, that talked about unusual things here in Portland. And one of the essays he wrote had to do with this and the shop in which this was hung. Once again, this is a copy of it. There used to be a shop here, went out of business during COVID, Hoodoo Antiques, about a block or two from here. And the owner, when he got remarried, his new mother-in-law gave him that sketch, the original. And he hung it proudly on the inside of the entry door, so it hung just about above the entry door. And when he hung it up, odd things began to happen. On several occasions, locals would come into the neighborhood and report that they'd walk past the shop late at night and they saw in the back of the store a woman walking back and forth along the back wall. Also, on consecutive New Year's Eves, he'd be at a New Year's Eve party. Before the ball dropped, on I believe it was 2 or 3 occasions, he got a phone call from a security company telling him to speed back to the shop because the security system was going off. He went back there. Both occasions, there was nothing. Well, so he did a little research, and what he came up with was that this is a sketch of a woman who used to live in this neighborhood, who her fiance went away and never came back. So the thinking is that she, as she was being, I want to say hung, but the picture was being hung inside the shop there, whatever was happening was as a result of her sorrow waiting for her fiance to return. Anyway, that's the story of that. Follow me this way. All right. Okay, so now we're going down a different staircase. This is a few words of caution. This is a very old staircase. The wooden stairs are smaller than you're used to. The staircase itself is steep and narrow. So use the banister and the grab bar as you go down. Take your time if you need to. And last person in, please close this.
Alex, I'm gonna go last because I don't want
just like, the shins and bruises on it. It's just cracking against it.
It smells like more like a lather.
Yeah, it's sometimes. Oh, no.
Now, are you guys gonna have you guys for you? Nothing, literally nothing was here. We put together all the different little illustrative cubby holes and corners, like the seamstress's room, the opium den, the gambling area there, and this prohibition era bar. So everything here is pretty much accurate to that period of the so-called Roaring '20s. And it's time for beer. Now all the beer that we serve here is made by us. We have a brewing facility and restaurant across the river on MLK called Old Town Brewing and Pizza. Grab those beers, somebody who wants one. You're so polite. And what we're drinking here, or what you're drinking here, this is our Pilsner. It's pretty light, pretty crisp. It's 4.9% alcohol by volume. And
Are the hops in Oregon as well?
I'm sorry?
The hops made in Oregon as well?
Yes. All right, come on forward. Grab one of these guys.
Thank you.
Find you a new job.
Is he always this helpful?
I can wait for the next one. You're all good.
Anybody else need a beer? All right.
I just need one more.
Okay.
Sorry.
Then you shall have it.
I appreciate it.
All right. Okay, so I promised to show everybody a photo, and I'm going to do that right now. If you want to see this photo, please step to the bar. And so let me put this in context for you. This was shot during that crazy month of June 2023 on one of my former colleague Jason's tour. He was down there on a Friday, and a woman in the group thought she saw somebody down there, so she snapped a photo. I'm going to show you 3 versions of this photo, and the first is unremarkable. It'll just remind you what the area was that we're talking about here, that area with the wooden post and the white curtain. Okay? Okay. So when I came in on Saturday, everybody was at the bar talking because they'd already discovered that if you magnify the photo, you begin to see something immediately adjacent to that wooden post.
The orb. No, it's like the above
Oh,
it.
what is
It's that
The eyes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I thought
Okay. So that was Saturday. Before I came in for my Sunday tours, I spent a little time on my iPhone in the camera app brightening up the photo. And when you brighten up the photo, here's what you see.
Oh, well, you don't see the.
I have to get glasses on. I can't see the shapes.
I've seen the guy one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a small little figure.
Okay? And I'm going to put it right here in case you want to take a closer look at it. Come on. And if you look closely, you look at the guy's feet, you'll see what apparently is a dog.
Oh shit, you're right there? Oh gosh. You're right there, right? Oh, sorry.
And now we switch it over to beer number 2. This is our pale ale. It's got it's hoppier. It's buzzier. It's got 6.1% alcohol by volume. You're welcome. And you can also taste a bit of a grapefruity undertaste.
Look in that corner, see what the gray one. Wait, I gotta see this dog corner.
Oh yeah.
And here goes that. Anybody need some pale ale? Okay. Okay, so questions. Did anybody smell any kind of perfume? Did anybody have any kind of physical sensations at all?
Cold.
Where were you when you had that?
So like when we had kind of gotten into that room, I kind of like went in and then turned right, and then I kept
The
feeling
door?
that there was
In the very, very end of the tour, or no?
No, the door that you croak, is it the arch door?
No.
Oh.
It's one that kind of in that room, and I kept feeling there was somebody just in that corner,
Really?
and then all of a sudden I just got cold.
Okay.
And I was like,
Yeah, people do. It's a rare tour where somebody doesn't have some sort of
Right when you're.
physical sensation or premonition of some kind or whatever.
I felt something, but it's so hard when you feel something because you always can, like, your rational brain's like, oh, maybe it's just. But it was right when your thing was going at 5. It was right. I had like a cold chill and tingle on but that thing was going at 5, right where he was like kind of pointing behind me.
And that was where?
That was under behind the wooden door that we had to go underneath.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
But I don't know.
It was
But that thing was
mostly
going
like-
off
like,
at the same time.
Right.
Those,
Okay.
Those kind of walls in the back.
Yeah.
It was like the one like they had where it's like this, some type of wood.
Yeah.
It was like wood in the back,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then there was one like we went into that door that's that big old arch.
Yeah.
Same thing happened.
Okay.
So there's something there.
Hey, I want to remind everybody or tell everybody, everybody is entitled to a beer at the conclusion of the tour. So if you go up to Anne, who's bartending, show her your email receipt from the tour, she'll give you a pint of whatever you'd like from the chalkboard, a can to go, sparkling cider, glass of wine, some fentanyl. So just get, I'm sorry. Kidding. Hey, so this is the sad part of the tour. People realize, that, they're not going to see old Dougie anymore, so they get all kind of sloppy and sentimental. Some of the women actually break down in tears. Are you going to be okay, speaking of which? Are you really? I know you're fighting something. It's typically women. That lose control. I'm not making any kind of. I don't want to get into some political hot stew here. Anyway, before I let everybody go, by the way, here's my tip jar, here's my Venmo QR code. I want to see if I can let you guys leave with some perspective on all this ghost and supernatural stuff. And for this, we go to Toronto, Canada. The year being 1972, and in that place at that time, there was a small group of highly educated individuals, advanced degreed people, PhDs and the like, and what they did was they formed a group called the Toronto Psychic Society, and what they would do is they would meet from time to time to investigate paranormal phenomena. One night, at one of their gatherings, one of the members of this group had an idea. The idea was to see if this group could actually create from scratch a ghost, their own ghost. Everybody was agreeable to that, thought it was a good idea, so they go off, they conduct their independent research, they return, and they cobble together a bio, a backstory, if you will, for their candidate for ghosthood. And this was an individual that they named Philip. Their Philip was based actually on verifiable historic events, and it was embellished by their own imaginations. So what we're talking about here essentially is a fictionalized individual named Philip. And their Philip lived in England in the 1600s. He was wealthy, closely connected with the monarchy. He was a governmental spy. He fell out of love with his wife, into love with a younger woman. This younger woman was accused of being a witch, put on trial, found guilty, executed, and then Philip, in his sorrow, ended his own life. Okay, that's their Philip. So what they do is they go into a brightly lighted room, and as a group, they all visualized Philip. They visualized, they meditated, and they had no success. So what they did next was they lowered the lighting in the room to more closely mimic the atmosphere of a seance. And once again, they did a group visualization of their Philip. And they succeeded. They knew they had succeeded because they would ask Philip yes or no questions, and Philip would respond by rapping on the wooden table in the room, once for yes and twice for no. He would move furniture upon request. Okay, so this was an enormous success for these guys. In fact, it's become known as the Philip experiment, and it's gone down as a landmark in this very, very specific area of paranormal research, the Philip experiment. So word gets out in Toronto. Pretty soon they're contacted by a writer who says he'd like to write a book about the Philip experiment. So this guy brings in a video crew to videotape a seance. And what I'm about to describe to you, you can verify for yourself if you go online and Google the Philip experiment. What you see on this digitized video that lives online, you see a small room, 7 people seated around a circular wooden table. You can hear them asking Philip yes or no questions, and you can hear with your own ears Philip responding by rapping on the table once for yes, twice for no. He actually, in a really startling moment, about 40 seconds or so into this tape, he actually lifts the table and plants it so it's a direct right angle to the floor. It's really amazing. Once again, they receive lots of kudos, but what happens is, a few days later, they're at one of their meetings, and one of the members of this group blurts out, "Come on, Philip, you don't exist. We created you." And that was the end of all communication with Philip. The chain of belief had been broken. So here's the question. Do you think it's possible for a group of people all visualizing the same thing at the same time to bring into existence something that did not exist before? According to Alicia, yes, it's been proven. Now I want to turn the table, so to speak, and go back about 4 years ago when I was doing a similar tour to this one in this building for a different company. One night, I'm about 10 minutes away from beginning the tour, and a woman from the group, unprovoked by me, steps forward and just felt, for some reason, she had to make clear to me how much she believed in ghosts. This woman was the first woman who I'd met who was so deeply convinced of ghosts. I mean, she was all in. She was fully invested. On a scale of 1 to 10, she was a Spinal Tap 11. This woman believed. Okay. She excuses herself to go to the restroom. She comes back in a few minutes, and she's got kind of a smirk on her face, and she says, "You know what? I knew this building was haunted. The entire time I was in that bathroom, the lights were flickering." I didn't have the heart to tell her they'd been flickering for weeks because we simply hadn't repaired a loose wire in the bathroom. So here's the moral. They say belief can set you free, but you know what? Belief can also be a prison. If you choose to ascribe a supernatural motivation for things that are slightly outside your frame of reference, you're going to be a paranoid wreck. However, I believe even more strongly that it's absolutely essential for each and every one of us to keep that window of belief open, because you've got to admit, you must admit that there are things in this world beyond our meager human frame of comprehension. And with that, I'll say goodbye, and I'm going to warn you guys when you get up, Don't bang your head. And so that, you know, so I will say goodbye to you now. I'll show you how to get out of here by the staircase. Any last minute questions? Okay. So, and I told you about the using your email to claim your beer. Don't forget to do that. So let's head this way.
Do you want tips down here or tips up there? Oh, okay, sorry.
Thank you, I appreciate it. And going this way. That way. Keep taking the tour.
So much faster.
Yeah. The historical photo was the one we saw, he's like, that. Right. You're mixing
Oh, that's true. Yeah. I forgot about that too. I was thinking of our ghost cat.
Alright. Is the ghost tour. Keep on traveling in Oregon.